Just imagine, what if after dying, a person is recruited into a police force that catches the dead? That's exactly what happens to Nick. At the beginning of the story, we see two police officers named Nick and Roy who are chasing a huge, extremely fat man. But this is no ordinary person. This little guy can walk on walls, and for his weight, his agility is surprisingly high. A few days earlier, Nick had hidden a bag full of gold in his backyard. He lives with his beautiful wife Julia, who loves him very much. According to Julia, her husband is an honest police officer, but honest people don't hide gold in their gardens. Well, this is the first time Nick has done something like this too. He wasn't feeling right about this whole mess, so he went to the office and told his partner Bobby that he was going to surrender his share of the gold. But Bobby didn't need to worry because he wouldn't let his name come up. This tells us that Bobby was also involved in this scam with Nick. Just then, they suddenly got news about the location of a drug mafia hideout. They immediately set out in the car to raid that place. But as soon as he got the chance, Bobby riddled Nick with bullets because he didn't want Nick to tell anyone about the gold. Suddenly, Nick's eyes opened and he realized that time around him had stopped. When he went outside, a tornado in the sky pulled him inside. From there, somehow Nick ended up in the office of a woman named Mildred. Mildred told him that the decision about whether he would go to heaven or hell would be made after a few days because there were already a lot of people in line ahead of him. Until then, if he wanted, he could work for the R.I.P.D, that is the Rest in Peace department. When he heard that his posting would be in his own city, Boston, Nick immediately agreed to join. The job of the R.I.P.D is to catch dead people who are illegally living on Earth and send them above. These people are also called deados. After this, Mildred introduced him to his new partner Roy, who preferred to work alone. After a while, the two of them returned to Earth together, and Nick arrived at his own funeral. Seeing Julia, he couldn't stop himself and ran to her to tell her the whole truth, but she didn't even recognize him. The police officers present there pushed him away. Actually, R.I.P.D officers look completely different on Earth. Roy looked like a tough, troublemaking woman, while Nick appeared as an old Chinese man. On their first mission, Roy explained that dados leave behind clues like dead plants, malfunctioning electronic devices, and so on because their negative energy follows them. Both of them went to interrogate a man named Stanley. They kept asking him question after question, and finally, he revealed his true form. Nick was trying to arrest him, but Stanley took the opportunity to attack him. In the process, he even tore off one of his own arms. While running outside, he started swallowing pieces of gold. Nick grabbed him and slapped him hard with his own hand. Nick was shocked to see those pieces of gold coming out of his mouth because they were exactly like the ones he had stolen with Bobby. Seizing the moment, that dado attacked Nick again, but Roy shot him down with his gun. After that, he started teasing Nick about his poor performance on the first day. In anger, Nick threw him in front of a moving bus. Later, Nick explained to Roy that they should find out about the gold because he was trying his best to protect it from the dados. The next day, Roy took Nick to one of his dado informants, Elliot. Nick asked him about the gold, but the dado claimed that he didn't know anything about it. After that, the two of them decided to keep an eye on him from a distance. Elliot handed the piece of gold to Bobby and left from there. Now Roy was also getting more interested in this case, and together they followed Bobby to Nick's house. After that, Bobby takes out the bag of gold from their garden, the one Nick had buried there. From Julia's face, Nick could tell how disappointed she was after seeing all this. On the other hand, Roy started suspecting him. Nick explained to him very clearly that he did all this just for the money, but he had absolutely no idea what the connection between the golden dados was. Both of them followed Bobby to the airport where he met a man in a suit. As soon as they got the chance, they grabbed him and took him aside. They questioned him about the gold, but got nothing out of it. He suddenly transformed into that same terrifying fat man we saw at the beginning of the story. They put all their effort into catching him, but this little rascal just kept slipping away. He was wreaking havoc all over the city. They couldn't catch him, but they did get their hands on the gold. When they got back to the station, Mildred scolded them harshly because thanks to them, a dado had appeared in broad daylight in front of the whole world. We also found out that the gold is part of an ancient weapon. With its help, all the dead could return to Earth, and if that happens, the world will be destroyed. Even after bringing such important information, both of them were suspended. And it's possible that because of their mistake, they might be erased completely. Nick went to Julia once again so he could tell her the whole truth. This time, even Julia started to trust him, but suddenly she pulled her hand away and walked off. Roy, seeing all this, tried to explain to Nick, "Look man, you're dead. You can't go back, so let her move on with her life too." At first he was agitated hearing this, but later he realized that Roy was actually right. The two of them decided to work together to stop the Deado's plan from succeeding. Nick suspected that Bobby was also a Deado, but he had never seen any dead plants or broken electrical appliances near Bobby. Roy explained that he must be using something to hide his negative energy. At this, Nick remembered that he always wore a bracelet. On the other hand, Bobby met with another Deado and handed him a strange-looking object. From their conversation, it became clear that they would soon succeed in their plan. The next day, Julia called Bobby and told him how an old Chinese man had come to her and spoken exactly like her husband Nick. As soon as he heard this, he realized that Nick had returned to Earth as an R.I.P.D officer. Just then, Nick and Roy arrived at Bobby's house. Nick pointed a gun at him and told him to take off his bracelet. As soon as the bracelet was removed, things around them started to rot. His negative energy was so intense that it split the entire house in half. The surprising thing was that he very willingly agreed to go to the station with them. At the station, many more Deados had also been brought in under arrest. Actually, this was their plan, so they could steal back the pieces of gold kept at the station. As soon as the evidence vault was opened, Bobby used the time-slowing weapon that we had seen with him the previous night. With its help, they took all the gold and escaped from there. Roy shot and ended the effect of that weapon. But by then, it was already too late. The Deados were now roaming openly in the streets. Bobby called Motu Chacha and told him that they now had all the gold. At his signal, many Deados started working on making that mysterious weapon. A fierce battle broke out between the R.I.P.D officers and the Deados. Bullets were flying from both sides. Suddenly, a tornado began to form in the sky, and seeing this, Nick and Roy realized where they would find Bobby. Nick, dodging falling cars and dangerous Deados in true action style, was heading toward the tornado. But to reach there, everyone would have to face Motu Chacha and his gang. Meanwhile, Bobby had his men bring Julia there as well. Actually, to complete that dangerous weapon, they also needed the blood of a human. Bobby revealed his true form in front of Julia, which terrified her. On the other hand, Nick and Roy were fighting Motu Chacha and his gang. On the rooftop, Bobby was just about to sacrifice Julia when Nick and Roy make their entrance at exactly the right moment. But unlike a Bollywood villain, Bobby doesn't waste any time. He quickly thrusts a long rod straight through Julia's stomach. After that, both of them put all their strength into fighting those Deados. During the fight, that weapon started to drain Julia's blood, and suddenly dead people began to rain down from the sky. Fighting their way through the Deados, Nick and Roy somehow managed to reach that dangerous weapon. Roy tried to stop it, while Nick and Bobby started fighting each other. Bobby was completely overpowering him. On the other hand, when the weapon wouldn't stop despite his best efforts, Roy used his lasso to roll a small truck onto it. All this distracted Bobby as well, and Nick seized the opportunity to shoot him with his gun. He ran over to Julia, but suddenly time around them froze just like it had with Nick before. Now Julia could see Nick's real face again. Expressing his love, Nick explained to Julia that she couldn't die yet. She had to live. He would always love her, but he wanted her to forget him and move on with her life. Sometime later, she opened her eyes in a hospital. Mildred assured Nick that Julia would make a full recovery. At the end of the story, we see that she had now been given a new identity. Now, instead of looking like an old Chinese man, she looked like a teenage girl. So what really happens to people after they die? What do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comments.